Exactly the time I'm getting this thing. Once in a while, I could walk out a little bit early and just stand in the sun. You know what it is? It's the woman's.
They were buying, wow, back.
Yeah.
So you would be-
The girls say Tafanu, but regular Ashkenazi don't start them, but it's hard best.
But that's it happening.
Start in the days
Okay. Up to Daf Samach Beis, 62a, and we did a little further on Friday till about, I guess, 20 lines down or so. And it's highlighted over here. So we had the Mishnah about Pruvu, that Beishamai said two males, and Beisil said a male and a female, Zach and a Keva. And now the Gemara brings down two brises that are going to say different opinions, different quotations of Beishamai and Beisil, but it's not going to change what we pass. We pass like Beisil, a boy and a girl. Did you have a chance to look up, Moshe, about? Okay, if you have a chance. Okay. Tanya, Rabbi Nasser Nomer. This is about 10 lines before it's prayer. Samach Beis Aleph. Tanya, Rabbi Nasser Nomer. Beishamai Yomer Shnei Yitzchak V'Shem. It's a new shita. We didn't hear this. We heard Beishamai says. I'm trying to make it bigger. Beishamai had said two boys. Rabbi Nasser said in the name of Beishamai 2 boys and 2 girls. It means according to the new shita that according to Beishamai you'd have to have four children in order to be kind of 2 boys, 2 girls. Beisil was up in the cave. Beisil doesn't change. Even according to this version, Beisil still holds a boy and a girl, like we said before. We said that the source of Beisil is because Kibbutz Shalom, just like Hashem created a man and a woman, so too man is supposed to procreate also a boy and a girl. Beishamai, I think what I said before, Shnei Yitzchak was from. You see that Moshe Rabbeinu had 2 sons, and Beisil would argue and say that was an exception. That was the more before. It's an exception to the rule because he was Moshe Rabbeinu. That it was important for him not to have relations anymore. But now comes a new shita. Beishamai says 2 boys, 2 girls. Where does that come from? Where does this opinion come from? You find that Chava, when she gave birth, it says that she gave birth to Cain, and then it says that she did more, and she gave birth to her brother Hevel. And the Gemara says over there that the fact that it says S, so it comes to include there were girls born also, a twin girl. So Cain had a twin sister, and so did Hevel. So how do you see that that's the minimum for so they did have 4 children, Cain and Hevel, plus the 2 twin sisters. But how do you see that's necessary in order to have Pruvu? Because it says when Hevel died, so it says that Chava said that Hashem gave me another child in the place of Hevel because Cain killed him. So the fact that he had to have a replacement, that means it wasn't enough. That the fact that she said, now I have a replacement of Hevel, so that means that she needed a replacement because the mitzvah of Pruvu requires it should be 2 boys and 2 girls. But the Gemara says it's not a raya. It means those who argue and say no, Rabbanan, all those that argue, which means we hold not like that. But do Yehu the Kamod, that she was only thanking. She was thanking that she has the Pashup Shah. She was thanking Hashem that she has a replacement for Hevel that had died, but not that she needs a halachic replacement because she wasn't the kind of he wasn't the kind of Pruvu. So that's a new opinion in Beishamai, 2 boys and 2 girls. We don't pass like that. And then there's another version of Rabbi Nassan. According to this opinion, so Beishamai is the one who holds a boy and a girl, and we said Beisil holds a boy and a girl. Now Beishamai says a boy and a girl. Why does Beisil say? Either one or the either. 1 child, no difference if it's a boy or a girl. And where does that come from?
What was that?
This is Rabbi Nassan according to Beisil. My Rav, my time with Rabbi Nassan leading to Beisil. Where's going to be a source for this? The pasuk says, pasuk in the Shine, not a pasuk in the Torah. It says Hashem did not to create the world for emptiness. He made it in order to be populated. So that's this population means the word Shabbos just means that it should be populated. So there's no minimum. So any child, boy, girl, as long as it's 1 child. So we have all the opinions already, different versions. But the Lamaisa we pass like Beisilo and our Mishnah that it's a boy and a girl. That's the in order to be Yosef Puravu, a person would have to continue trying to have children until he has a boy and a girl.
I have a question on that.
Yes, please.
If 2 parents take 1 child, then the population is going to go down by half. So how is that populating the world?
I don't know. It doesn't mean that they only can have 1 child, but the minimum is to have some kind of population. That means that you're right. That according to that would happen, you're right. But as we see that people have more than the necessary. Okay, as far as, okay, and he's saying he's proving it from the pasuk in Yeshaya that says, which is a chiddush because it doesn't say in the Torah, it's pasuk in Yeshaya. But as far as the law, we don't pass like that. You have to have a person has to boy, a boy and a girl. Okay, the Gemara continues a new sugya, a very, very interesting sugya. Itmar, hayilo banim biyosa goy, vin is gaya. What do you say about this? A person had children when he was a goy, and then he became a convert. Are the children that he had as a goy, is that enough to be Mekayim Pruvu? So what would you say? Of course not. Why? Why would you say that?
Because he has to do Mekayim.
It has to be Jewish children.
So Moshe is saying that for sure it has to be Jewish children.
What's wrong with someone with a gear?
I would say because he has the mitzvah is on Jews, not on goyim. So he fulfilled the mitzvah of Jew.
What is that, Rabbi Yaakov?
He didn't fulfill, even though he helped populate the world. It wasn't a mitzvah for him as a goy, and the mitzvah is on Jews. So to fulfill the
But he has children. He has children. He still has them. They're still his children. I mean, he's a ger, but he has these children. So that's why the Gemara has room for a question. Moshe is saying the question they have to be Jewish. If they're not Jewish, what's the question? Chaim David is saying.
And if they Megayer.
And Chaim David is saying, how about if they would be Megayer? I mean, Chaim David is also agreeing that if they wouldn't be Megayer. So it's very, very interesting that the Gemara doesn't talk about it. The Gemara doesn't seem to say any hint that the children were Megayer. The Rambam says that's what it's talking about, that the children were Megayer, and that's the question. Only if the children also were converted, that's the question if he's going to be Yosef with those children. And the Shulchan Aruch brings it down like the Rambam also, that the whole sugi is only going to be if the children also were Megayer. But the Gra, he says that all the poskim argue on the Rambam, and there's come out no proof that the Rambam would have. He talks about the proofs that it might be, but the Gra comes out not like that. That the Gemara is talking about the children are going. Very, very fascinating. What's that?
They were Megayer?
They were not Megayer.
They were not.
And the children are goyim, and still the Gemara has a question if the father is going to be Mekayim Pruvu with the goyish children. The Rambam didn't even consider that a possibility, like Moshe, but and that's what Shulchan Aruch says. But the Gemara says not like that, and he says all the poskim argue on the Rambam, and he learns the sugya that the children did not convert, the father converted.
Right, so I agree on that. They didn't do Pruvu.
So you're against the so you're going with the Gemara.
I like the Gemara.
Yes, but the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch they say that it's talking about the children were Megayer. Without that, there'd be no question. Let's see what it says. Machlokes says that it's enough to be Mekayim Pruvu, even though he had these children when he was a goy, and Shloki says no. Now the Gemara is not going to talk about Moshe's issue that the children are not Jewish. The Gemara doesn't talk about it. This issue with the children were Megayer or not is an issue for the Rishonim, but the Gemara doesn't say. And how you learn the Gemara? Two ways to learn the Gemara. Maybe the children are goy, maybe the children are Jewish. What does the Gemara talk about? If they're considered related. Now that the father converted, are they considered related now? There might be nice children, might even be Jewish children, but they're not his maybe. So that's the issue of the Gemara. Are they considered still related? Because he had children. The fact that the father converted, so they're not considered related anymore. So even though he had children, but now that he converted, they're not considered anymore his relation. So he doesn't have children. We find that they are consistent with their opinion. If the goyish children, if the person, not the goyish children, that's one way to say it. If the person after he converted is considered their father, or they considered his sons, and we find that they have such a machlokas in a different place, the itmar, a different scenario. I should have also highlighted this. Hayilo banim yoso goy v'nis gaya, and the question is going to be as far as b'chol nachla. The question is, a man, a guy, he had children when he was a guy, and then the father converted, and now he had more children. From a Jewish, now as a Jew, he had children. The question is the firstborn of the Jewish children going to be a Bechor and get a double portion in the Yerusha, or he's not a firstborn because the father had children before him? Why?
Because
no
Yerusha.
No, it's not. This is nothing. The Yerusha has to go with the father. It doesn't go with the mother.
Nobody's
You're talking about a different kind of Bechor. So it goes with the father. It doesn't go with the mother. You're talking about Pidyon Ben, maybe. But Reish Sono has to do Bechor Lanachla has to do with Reish Sono. Yes, please. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if the Jewish son is going to get a double portion. He had a Goyish son, and then the father converted, and now he had many Jewish sons, and and the firstborn of the Jewish sons wants to know if he gets a double portion in the father's
I
Yerusha.
think absolutely. Because
Why?
He became a Jew. He was born. It was born with the first.
But the
first
father had a
Jewish-
child before that.
That's only mechanically. That's only the teva. What's called the
Biologically.
biological, but it's not the spiritual.
Why not?
He's not considered.
He's not Jewish.
So-
He's not a ben Brit.
So everyone keeps on saying the same thing, but they're not going with the Gemara. Everyone keeps on saying the kids are not Jewish, but the Gemara is not concerned the kids are not Jewish. The Gemara is talking about that the father's not related because if he was Megayim or
Right,
not.
not related.
So
Maybe
you have to,
that's-
even though that's my initial reaction also, but we have to go with the Gemara. The Gemara talks about is the father, now that the father converted, is he still considered related to the first child that he had as a guy? Not the Gemara doesn't talk about if the child is Jewish or not.
Right.
The Rambam
I
talks
know the
about it.
opposite, that a child who is in a guy
We're not talking about
doesn't consider his father.
the Gemara is not talking about. The Gemara doesn't talk about if the child was Megai or not. The Gemara talks about that the father was Megai. It doesn't talk about the fact that the child was Megai or not. The Rambam is going to say yes. The other person is going to say not. But that's not the issue of the Gemara. The issue of the Gemara is that the father converted, and therefore is not related to his child,
Right.
and therefore his first child as a new-born person
Should get
is
double.
the Jew. That's the machlokas now, and it's going to be consistent. What?
So you should get double.
So everyone is taking Rish Lakish's side. Everyone's being like Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan said that Kiyam Piriv, and here he's going to say Rabbi Yochanan says that the child born, the first Jewish born child, is not a B'chol Anachla because he has an older brother from the father who was a goy. So and we're going to pass like Rabbi Yochanan, by the way. You don't pass like Rish Lakish, pass like
I
Rabbi
would
Yochanan.
say that it's to do with shalom, and so that the father, the goyish kid doesn't murder his father.
We're talking about, I'm not sure what you're holding. We're talking about if the Jewish kid is going to get Tishnaim or not. That's the only subject.
If the goyish kid,
If
who
the
was born
Jewish-
first
if the
realizes that
Jewish
his
child-
brother who was born later got double the portion, he'll kill somebody.
He has nothing to do. He's out of the Yerusha. The Goyish is out of the Yerusha.
What are you talking about?
Yes, yes,
Ah,
The
no,
new
I-
guy.
I
just
And
thought-
gets
also-
double the
and
lot.
also the
he's still
Gemara-
in the picture.
And also the Gemara is putting it together with the Gemara. The Gemara is saying this is the same achlokas as before.
Right.
Before it was the father Mekayim Pruvu, and now is the child born afterwards? Is it his first child or not? So the Gemara puts it all in the same child pot. That's the same idea. So it's all the svaras you want to put in. It's not what the Gemara is saying. You're saying new svaras about Yerusha and danger with the mafia and stuff like that. But the Gemara is not talking about that. The Gemara is talking about this one issue. If the father became a convert now, does he have relationship to that goyish child that he had? That's all the Gemara sees. I'm not saying that it's not strange. I also would have jumped up and say the kid's a goyish kid, like what? But the Gemara doesn't talk about that. Very, very interesting. That's why I introduced that. It's very interesting. The Rambam does say it's talking about the children of Magaya, the goyish child, but the Rambam, the Gemara doesn't say a word about it.
But we have also Lysail Bara.
Yes, but we're talking about Puravu. We want to know the mitzvah of Puravu. Were they Mekayim Puravu?
I understand.
So Rabbi Yochanan says yes, he's Mekayim.
Lysail Bara.
Yes, but Rabbi Yochanan is saying you're Mekayim the mitzvah. Yeah, they have the issue of Lashem, but now we're saying that the Jew was Mekayim Puravu, and even though. Okay, that's the question. If the kid's a guy, even regardless, Rabbi Yochanan seems not to care. The Rambam does say the kid was Megaya, and Rabbi Yochanan says that it is considered his child. Rish Lakish says no because the father is a new person. That's like Rabbi Yochanan. Here's the machlokas Rishon. Now it's going to be machlokas if the children were not Megaya. And here's the question also. The Gemara says that all the poskim argue on the Rambam. He doesn't go like the Shulchan Aruch. He says even if the children were not Megaya, also the father's Mekayim Pruvu with goyish children.
He says that.
I said it before. You agreed.
That's Rabbi Yochanan. That's Rabbi Yochanan.
Okay, good.
That's why I say it. We have pasuk that Kadosh Baruch Hu created Bnei Noach, Lysail Bara.
But we're talking about Jewish people now. We want to know if the Jewish father is Mekayim the mitzvah of Pruvu, and we say yes. We're saying he's Mekayim the mitzvah with goyish children.
That's right.
I'm not sure why you're happy.
I'm a little shocked.
We're not arguing. We're saying because
A little
that's
shocked
Kadosh
because
Baruch Hu
what is
approach
the world
being
need?
added.
Hashem said Pruvu. Not
There's
only
another mitzvah also.
that's the goyish mitzvah. Now we're talking about the Jewish mitzvah, Pruvu, and it says he's Mekayim the mitzvah. The Jew. I would have thought that he has to have children. So that's the machlokas Rishonim. Okay, next Gemara. So now the Gemara says inconsistency with their machlokas because if he had a children when he was a guy and then the father converted, Rabbi Yochanan Amar ein lo b'chol anachla. The havalei reishis ono that the Jewish children born from now on are not going to be a double portion. They're not going to get double portion because they're not the firstborn. The goyish child born before he's the firstborn. Was he Megai or not? Question. But Rabbi Yochanan says that the child that's born afterwards is not going to be the Bechor. Reish Lakish Amar Yesh Lo Bechor Lenachla. Why? Gershon is guy Kodesh and Oladami. The Reish Lakish says that the first child that's born after the father converted, he's the first child and he's going to get a double portion. That's the consistency. They're being consistent. Reish Lakish says the father converted, now he starts all over again.
I mean,
Everyone agrees with Reish Lakish. And we don't pass like him. And the Gemara says it's necessary to argue both things. Means they argued on 2 points. They're the same thing, the same criteria. And one question is if the father was Yosef Puravu, and the second question is if the child born after he's Jewish, if he's a firstborn or not. And the Gemara says the Chorus the same things. Why are you arguing twice? It's Tzricha. Yes, Minan Bahu Kamaisa Bahi Kamar Rabbi Yochanan Mishem de Mekoranami Bnei Pir B'Yevinenu Avlin Yanachlot Lavnei Nachlanenu Emamodi Leil B'Shlakish. If they only would argue in the first issue with the father's Yosef Puravu, over there you might say that over there Rabbi Yochanan says the father's Yosef because the Goyim also had a mitzvah of Puravu, like Rabbi Eliezer is saying that since the Goyim also had a mitzvah of Puravu, now that they became Jewish, so that's good enough. That the Jewish mitzvah of Puravu continue. So here it says that they also so they talk about that. It's not in the, it might not be in the Shev Mitzvah Noach. They ask so they're not in the seven Mitzvah Noach. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say in the Shev Mitzvah Noach. So Tosis has the kasha. Tosis has the kasha. Mashman Sanhedrin up here. Tosis has the kasha that it's Mashman Sanhedrin. The Bnei Noach lo mifkdu a peer review. So Tosis says it doesn't mean that. It just means that they are considered offspring. It doesn't mean literally that they're commanded and provable, but they were b'nei peer review. But the issue of Nachla, the Lavnei Nachla ninu ema modi leila b'shlakish. But in the case of Nachla, as far as the child born after he's Jewish, is he considered the secondborn, the firstborn? You consider the child before the Giyur or not? So you might say that the Goyim are not in the parsha of Yerusha. That's what the words of the Gemara seem to say. Tais has a problem with that also because Goyim are in the parsha of Yerusha. Tais has the kasha kloma nachlas b'chora. Goy Yoresh Asavet Bator. There is really Yerusha by Goyim. So Tais says the Gemara is talking about the firstborn issue. There's no din of Pishnayim. There's no din of a double portion by Goyim. So therefore, you might think that as far as that, he would agree. And that the first one born after the conversion, that would be considered the first child born as far as Pishnayim. And also the other way, you might think, like we just said, if only we say the second case about the inheritance, over there you might say Dafka Rishlakish says because inheritance is only a Jewish issue of Pishnayim, so then you go with the Jewish issue after you converted, but the issue of Pruvu, which is also a Goyish issue, either biological, whatever you might say. So over there you might agree to Rabbi Yochanan that the father did fulfill the mitzvah of Pruvu, even with the children that were born before his conversion. From Mashmalan, that Rishlakish argues on both points. And again, we pass in like Rabbi Yochanan.
In both cases.
In both cases, and it means the father was Mekayim Pruvu, and the child born after the father converted does not get double portion. And again, in Shulchan Aruch, this Rambam says that if the child was Megayer, the Goy was Megayer, as far as Pruvu, and the Gemara says that other posts can argue.
That's true also.
Even if the children, yes, that's what we're talking about. Even if it's the Goyish child, the father's Mekayim the mitzvah with the Goyish child. So if yes, there it is. So Rabbi Yochanan has to do Melech Bavel, also has to do with Iraq over here. So Rabbi Yochanan asked for Shlokish. How could now the Gemara thinks the Gemara seems that Rabbi Yochanan didn't know for Shlokish's reason. The Gemara told us already twice. Shlokish holds Gershik and this guy Kodesh and Oladami. The Gemara told us already the reason of Shlokish, and according to that reason, the Gemara's kasha wouldn't make sense. But it seems that Rabbi Yochanan didn't know Shlokish's reason. Rabbi Yochanan thought that Shlokish holds that Goyim are not considered related to their parents, even in the Goyish state. That a Goyish child is not related to his Goyish parents. That's what Rabbi Yochanan thought Shlokish meant. I'll show you that Goyim are considered related to their blood parents because they're talks about a Goy. His name is Brodach Baladan, and his father's name was Baladan, and it calls him Brodach Baladan, Ben Baladan. So you see that the Goyim are considered mityaches to their parents. There is a relationship of a Goy to a Goy. So why do you say that you can't be Yotzei Pruvu? Amalei beyosin Goyim islu chayis. This guy will less luchayis. I agree that Goyim are considered related to each other, but once he converts, that's what I'm saying. This guy so that's what the Gemara said twice already. But the Gemara seems Rabbi Yochanan didn't know that. That's for Shlokish's reason, and now he reveals it to him. So the reason of Shlokish is because Gershon's guy and therefore you erase everything that happened before that. And Rabbi Yochanan also agrees to the principle, but not as far as these halachas go. As far as these halachas, you don't erase the past, and therefore he is Yotzei Pruvu with the child that was born before his conversion. and also the child born after his conversion is not considered the firstborn.
What about, does anything about Yerusha? No,
I just said the firstborn. That's talking about Yerusha. That Rebbe Yochanan holds that the child born after the conversion is not considered the firstborn. He's not going to get a double portion. New sugya. How about
the Goyish? Does he get a portion? Does he get even one portion?
after the father converted? Then there's no more Yerusha for the son. But if he'd be going do inherit their Goyish appearance on the Deraisa level. But that's not a subject here. He converted. The father converted. So now the child is not the Goyish child is not getting. Not even goes into an Eved. What if Eved got freed? Eved, we have Eved Knani. Status called Eved Knani. And he had children. And then he got freed. He becomes like a ger now. The same question: could he be Yosei? Is Yosei the mitzvah Pruvu with the children that he had before? Amarava or Rabba, they say Everybody agrees that Eved Knani is not considered related to his children, even when he's an Eved. Even as an Eved, the Eved Knani, not because the Gershon is Guy, without that. A guy, avodim are not considered related to their children. They biologically gave birth. The Gemara is going to say soon the same way animals. There's no they biologically, but they're not considered related. So too an Eved is not considered related to his children. So if an Eved will become Meshuchrar, he's going to become freed. So then he's not going to be Yotzei Pruvu with the children that he has an Eved. What? Lineage. Because when Avraham was talking to, they say maybe Yishmael, but Eliezer, the point is Eliezer, that he said, stay here with the Chamor. So some usually read the Gemara that the word im is like Adom Chamor, the nation that's similar to a donkey, as far as which halacha, as far as this halacha, that they're considered animals as far as Yachas, that they're not considered related to each other. The father and the children are not considered related. I heard a pshat that's very nice, that it's not Adom Chamor, but it's im. The word im, stay with the donkey. With, the word with denotes similarity. Stay with the donkey. Not that it's saying a nation, not the not that you change the word im to
There's no upgrade.
Im,
Don't look for upgrades. Stay with
no, it wouldn't be upgrading anyway. Just would say that the whole nation. Yeah, that's the there's a drash over here. Im Adom Alachamor. So usually people read it Am Adom Alachamor. That's like it's planned words. That im like But I heard a pshat that it's good the way it is. I wonder what ArtScroll says about this. But I think that there's a nice pshat that the word im by im means with. So therefore, both them are not considered related to each other. What are you going to look for over there? No. In the Gemara, there's a drash over here. The Pashup Shash only means with the donkey. The question is in the Gemara. So the question is how did but the Gemara says it right here. The question is how they're going to explain it. How are they going to punctuate it? They're going to say im Adom Alachamor. They're going to say am Adom Alachamor. Usually, you probably hear in the yeshiva am Adom Alachamor. So that's I think that some of us say not to say like that. Not am Adom Alachamor, but the word im, quotation im, means doma. That is considered on the same level. So the Gemara Kasha, I'll find you. Look around the Tanakh. Do you find any place that avodim are considered related to their children? So the Gemara found some place. Meisvei L'tziva Chamisha Asabonim. Also Esrim Avodim. Over there, it's talking about Tziva. Tziva, the slave of Mephibosheth, he was Eved Kanani, and over there it said he had 15 sons. So it says that he has sons. He's talking about an Eved Kanani. His name is Tziva, and he had 15 sons. So don't you see that Avodim do have relationship to their children? No, Kipar ben Bakar. That's just nice saying animals. Means that biologically. Means biologically he had biological sons, but not that they're considered his sons. The Gemara says, so then the proof of before about Baladan and Ben Baladan is also not a proof that they're considered related. Maybe over there also just because they're biologically connected. The Gemara says, no, it says names over here. No, Hassam, Shani Yosem, the Achasinu Bishmayu, Bishma Davun, it says their name and the father's name. Here it just says that he had 15 sons, so 15 biological sons. But before that it says his name and his father's name, that means that they're related. On another teretz, we find another pasuk that's even more extreme, that it says the father and the grandfather. It says even 3 generations. So over there we see that the pasuk really means that they're related. The Siva Ishlachem Melech Asa El Ben Hadad Ben Tarimon Ben Chizayon Melech Aram Hayoshe B'Damasek Lemor. So it says over there Ben Hadad was his name, Ben Tarimon is his father's name, Ben Chizayon was the grandfather's name. If it says so many generations, then it means they're related. That's the end of the Gemara. The first sugya was about if a Jew convert could be Yotzei Piravu with the children that he had as a goy, machlokes showing if they were Magai or not, and we pass like Yochanan that they could. And the second machlokes dependent on that is if the he had goyish children before he was Megayah, then he converted, he had more children, that the children born afterwards are considered before the Nachlo, Pas like a Yochanan, is not considered a firstborn child because he had a child before. By Eved, everybody agrees that the father and the children are not considered related to children. Nusagya. Itmar, Hayu Lobanim Umesu. A person
There's another reason that the owner of those children are the Baal. The Baal still holds on to the Baal of the Eved, holds the children. Now that he's Meshachrer, doesn't.
I don't know
change
if
the
that would. I
relationship
don't know
to
if that would
children.
change the status of Puruvu. If he had children, he had human beings, so maybe that's enough. That's not a question who owns them. We want to know if
He's called the Baal.
if he fulfilled the mitzvah of populating the world. So even if they'd be avadim, maybe yes. But the Gemara says no, not because the status of avadim as much, or maybe they were mishtachrer according to the Rambam, but because they're not related. Even as the Eved, they were not considered related. An Eved to his children are not considered related, even in
Because the
this.
Baal only uses the Eved to.
No, I'm saying,
give him
I'm
more
saying-
avadim.
no, you're
Only
talking
to
about-
give him more avadim.
No, first of all,
That doesn't
you're
work.
talking about Eved Ivri. You're talking about Eved Ivri. That's something else. We're talking about Eved Kanani. We're not talking about
It's
Eved
even
Ivri.
less of him, McGregor.
So we're talking about Eved Kanani is that it was Mishtachrer, he became Jewish. Now is Yosef Puruvu with the children that he has as an Eved. And the Rambam will throw in even if they were Mishtachrer. Also, he says they're not, and everyone will say that over here because they're not considered related, even as a Eved, even before he was Megayah, even before he was Mishtachrer. There's no relationship, and Eved there's not a relationship to his children. Nusagya. Somebody had children, regular Jew back to Jewish, everything's Jewish. He had children, but they died in his lifetime. Is he Mekayim Puruvu? Because somebody be Mekayim Puruvu, he had a boy and a girl, but they died. Why would you say for sure?
Of course, they lived through whatever amount of years and then they died. So why should
So that's the question. What's the purpose? Can it be a
But he
Puruvu?
didn't populate the world.
Temporarily it was populated. Moshe is saying, how long you want it to be populated? Everybody dies eventually.
The only population is when they have children. Then
So that's what the Gemara talking. That's what the
they don't
Gemara.
have children. Let's say if he has,
If
they
they
don't have children, so they stop kind of.
So the grandfather, those are not going to be Mekayim. So here's the Gemara. So Machlokes, Rav Huna and Rabbi Yochanan. Here Rabbi Yochanan is the one who's back before Rabbi Yochanan said yes. But here in this Rabbi Yochanan says no. Rabbi Huna says yes. Rabbi Yochanan says no. And Pasuk Rabbi Yochanan again that they're not kind. Rav Huna Makim Mishum Ravasi Dam Ravasi Yem David Bar Shechol Kol Neshama Shebaguf Shenema Ki Ruach Melafana Yaatov Neshama Sani Yasisi that the Shech is not going to come until all the neshamas get out of that place in Shemayim, which is called Guf. We had this someplace, and we had this in Nida, I think it says, and over there it says there's a place in Shemayim, a certain chamber called Guf, and the neshamas over there waiting to be born, and the Mashiach's not going to come till all those people, all those neshamas are taken out of there and brought into human bodies. So once they were born, even if they didn't live longer, the fact that they were born, that's already a reason that he was Mekayim Puruvu, he accomplished that. I think it doesn't say that. It means that he accomplished, just like Moshe is saying, as long as they were in the world, but they accomplished. That was an accomplishment to bring them into the world as long as they were over here. But
That's Rav Huna.
that's Rav Huna. That other pasuk shows that the purpose of Puruvu is to populate the world, and it's not populated. If they had children, who could have children, and they continuing the line, so then that's what the Torah wanted. But if it stopped, so then it's not Mekayim. It passed like a Yochanan. So if the children would have died in his lifetime, so then the Gemara is going to say soon also if they're sterile, if they're not able, also it's going to be an issue. Mars the Kasha Mesve, Kasha on. Who's this the Kasha on? Rav Huna, I think. It says in the Brisa.
But yet the answer is the Shevet Yitzra B'Ainan V'Halika. What do you mean? He had children. So in that
But
sense,
they
he did Shevet Yitzra.
No, because they died, so they're not. The world's not populated by them anymore.
What is
The Shevet Yitzra, Hashem created it in order to be populated.
Oh, I was thinking Yitzra that he allowed his Yitzra to.
No, Yitzra, Hashem created
Oh, I
the
see.
Shevet Yitzra. Hashem created it for the purpose of being populated. And it's not populated. The Master Kasha from Brisa, Amud Beis. It says in the Brisa that grandchildren are like children. So what does that mean? Grandchildren are like children. So the Gemara thinks that it means that even if the children died, but if they are grandchildren, it's good enough. That means like a Yochanan, that because according to Rabbi, you don't need the grandchildren. If you hold that the children, even if they died, is Yosef, so it doesn't have to come into the grandchildren. The fact that it says that the grandchildren take the place of the children, that sounds like Rabbi Yochanan. But the Gemara says that wouldn't be approved. That could be that it's in order to complete the number. He needs a boy and a girl. And for that, it says that the grandchildren close account. That if he would have had, what would be the case here? Rashi says that he had one son, and then that son had a daughter. That's what the Brisa means. The Brisa means to say that not that he needs a replacement. If Huna will say he doesn't need any replacements. If he had a boy and a girl, he's Yosef, even if they died. The case is he had only one. He had a son. He needs a daughter also. And for that, he had a granddaughter. A son and a granddaughter will be good enough to be Mekayim the mitzvah approval. That's how Huna is going to explain the Brisa that it shouldn't be a kasha on him. So he got out of the kasha. But the Gemara now is not a kasha. Continue the Brisa. It says again, we just finished explaining that. But then it says, if one of the children died, not going back on the grandchildren. This is the case that if a person had two children, but one of them died, or one of the children is sterile, he's not Mekayim. So it says Farish against Rav Huna. It says Farish like Yochanan that the children have to live. If the children died, unless they have grandchildren, that's going to be it. That says if they have grandchildren, so then that's also good. But if the child died, he's not Mekayim for Tifta Rav Huna. Tifta, so Huna is off. Person like Yochanan that if the children died in his lifetime, he's not Mekayim for
The pusher of Rav Huna is the pusher.
Right, he's Tifta. New sugya, not sugya. It comes in. We mentioned it on the top line. Now we're going to elaborate on it. It says grandchildren are like children, and now we know that the truth is like Rabbi Yochanan. So it means that he has to have a boy and a girl. But if
They have to be able to procreate.
right, and now it says if they died, if one of the children died, but they have grandchildren, so that's also good enough. So Rabbi thought that when it says that grandchildren are like children, it only helps for the same gender. That means if you had a son who gave birth to a son, that's also good. Or a daughter gave birth to a daughter. But if a son gave birth to a daughter and died, that's not good enough to be considered pruvu for the grandfather. He had two children, a boy and a girl. One of them died, and the one that died didn't leave over the same kind. He left over, or the other way, that he had a son. The daughter died and had a daughter. Fine, but if the daughter had a son, that also wouldn't be good enough. He has to have.
Because that leaves two sons, as opposed to a daughter and a son. Because the daughter had a son, so that means the only living procreation are two
It seems a good.
son and a grandson.
But I think that also, even if it will be that each one had the opposite, if the son had a daughter and the daughter had a son, also wouldn't be good enough. You have to have that a son could replace a son, and a daughter could replace the daughter. That's what that's what Rabbi seems to say. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Here, there's a question of the Gersa over here. There's a question of the Gersa. The way we have it, Kosh came brother brata. I said wrong when I said now. I was going to other Gersa. This Gersa says Kosh came brother brata, that if a daughter had a son, also will be good enough. It's replaces the son surely replaces a daughter. Avol brata lebro. But if the son died and only had a daughter, that wouldn't be good enough to replace the son.
That's been like by Shammai.
No, everybody. No, we're going now that you have to have a son and a daughter. But if the daughter died and had a son, that's good enough. But if the son died and had a daughter, it's not good enough. There's not a gear that makes it maybe simpler. That this time my Bible would have held that either way is no good. Not a son for a daughter, not a daughter for a son. That's all a question in Abaye. But Amalei Rava, Rava argues and says no, that as long as it's populated further. So so even if
it ends up with two girls, then
right, since he had a son and a daughter,
Right.
as long as they have some kind of a child is good enough. And that's what it seems to be in halacha. We pass in like this Bryce, we pass like a Yochanan. You have to have a son and a daughter, and if they die, it's not good. If they left over some kind of a child, any kind of a child, no matter what it is, also it's good enough. That's it, and that's what we pass in. But the Gemara does say that everybody holds over here that if the father only had one child, even though that child had many children, it doesn't help the grandfather to be Mekayim Pruvu. The Kul Yama Miyas Trei Mechadlo. Everybody holds that 2 from 1 child is not enough. That means the whole issue is if he has two, the one who's been Mekayim Pruvu has to have had a boy and a girl. And then the question is if one of them died, or if they died, what's the next generation? But it can't be that a person had one child and then he had many grandchildren. That doesn't help. It has to be at least a son and a daughter from the. And why is that?
People like Rashi or
If they didn't. We'd have to
had
try.
4 daughters.
It means you have to try. It means the mitzvah is to try. That's the mitzvah. Below, it was the kasha because kasha from somebody who seemed to be satisfied with grandchildren, even though he didn't have a son and a daughter. Here says Rav Sheshes is not a gears on the side, but they said to Rav Sheshes, Nesib Itza, why don't you get married to have children? It means he wasn't Mekayim Pruvu yet. It seems Rav Sheshes, he was not Mekayim Pruvu. He had a child, like it says, he had a daughter, but and he had grandchildren, but he didn't have a son. So the Rabbanim were telling him get married in order to have children, to be Mekayim Pruvu. He said, my daughters, children are sons. He seems to say they only have, even though they only had one daughter, since she had sons, that's Mekayim Peruvu. And
he
so
wasn't
far,
holding like everybody else.
so that's what the Gemara is asking. The Gemara says no. He also didn't mean to say that. The reason why he didn't want to get married is because he himself could not have children. He himself could not have children, therefore he didn't want to try to get. He didn't want to get married again. Whatever reason, he didn't have enough children. He wasn't Mekayim Peruvu yet. He didn't have a son. And really, halachically, if he could have had children, he should try, and he should get married again, trying to have sons. The reason why he didn't try is because he himself was sterile already. The Gemara says he became sterile because he had to hold himself in from relieving himself. That's going to be a sugya we have someplace else. It talks about that if a person holds himself in from urinating, so then it's possible that he becomes sterile from that. And he was forced into it at certain situations that he wasn't able, and therefore he became sterile. He wasn't able to have children, and that's the reason why he didn't try to marry more. And he's just was pushing them off and saying, I have sons also, but that wasn't really serious. It wasn't really the reason why he wasn't getting married. It really was because he knew he couldn't have children. The Gemara continues. Where's the source? He's saying now the grandchildren could count. We said if the children died, or one of the children died, so the next generation counts also. It's considered also the grandfather's children. Where do you find that grandchildren are considered like children? Lavan was telling Yaakov ran away from Lavan, and then he came back, and after the whole drasha, Yaakov was arguing with him. He said, "The sons are my sons, and the daughters are my daughters, and the sons are my sons." He's talking over there about his grandchildren. He only had daughters, right? He said, and he said, "The children are my children." So it sounds like he's saying that they're my grandchildren. Is that a source? Because of that pasuk, over there he says also that the sheep are my sheep. What does that mean? His sheep are sheep. It just means it just means that you got it from me. That the sheep that you have got from me. So it means to say that the sons that you got from me. It doesn't mean to say that they're my sons. He's not coming to say Allah against you. So what's the source?
He was trying. He wanted to say that he's big, but he's a Ramai and a Shakran, so nothing he says.
The Gemara would have been satisfied for Russia. That would have been enough to say. If it would have meant that, it would have been enough to say that he considers the grandchildren as his. The pashut is that he's saying that these kids are mine. If that's what he meant to say, he's saying that the grandchildren are mine. So he's saying, the pshat is saying to say that they're not yours, they're mine. Okay, but the Gemara would have been happy for that to say Drash that a grandfather is also considered a father. But the Gemara rejects it because when he says the sheep is my sheep, it doesn't mean that. He means to say that you got it from me. So also the sons you got from me and the daughters you got from me. So it's not a source for our subject. You have yet a source. How do you know that grandchildren are considered like children? Here's the pasuk. So the Gemara does an amazing masterpiece. Combination of pasuk and divrei hayamim and shoftim and til. Keep them together and we'll figure it out. The Gemara has these things on the fingertips. It says pasuk and divrei hayamim v'achar ba chetzron al bas machia b'gilad v'ter the lo asagub. Over there it says that Chetzron is from Shevet Yehuda. He married the daughter of Machir, who was from Menashe. That's this pasuk over here. Another pasuk says in Shoftim Umni Machir Yadu Mechokikim. Over there it says Machir, which is Menashe, that Mechokikim came. Mechokikim, lawmakers, Mechokikim. Uchsiv Yehuda Mechokiki. A pasuk in Tehillim says Yehuda is called Mechokiki. Why is Yehuda called Mechokiki? You only find that from Machir came Mechokikim. So here it says it must be because he married Menashe, and it really is from the Bas Machir. Bas Machir is the one who had Mechokikim. And why is it called Yehuda? Because the sons of the daughter are also considered sons. It's still Metaches to Shevet Yehuda, even though it wasn't Yehuda's sons. It was Yehuda's grandsons from a daughter that was from Menashe. Did I say it straight? Did I say it right? Rashi says that it wasn't from. The Rashi says the whole thing is only talking about a son of a daughter. A son of a son, Rashi says Pshita. You don't need a right for that. That a son's son are considered like sons, that's Pashut.
So it's Yehuda's son that married.
Chetzron married Bas Machir. Is that what it says? The pasuk says here, V'achar ba Chetzron al Bas Machir. Chetzron married Machir, the daughter of Machir. Chetzron is from Yehuda. And Bas Machir is from Menashe. And it says that they from Machir were Mechokikim. And it says Yehuda Mechokikim. Where does Yehuda come in? It's from the daughter who is from Menashe.
Right.
So you see that this daughter's son is also attributed to the grandfather. If someone has a daughter,
I was looking
but
to the Machek there as a Jewish.
That maybe is a kasha that you're asking that the pasuk says that he was blessed. Maybe over there saying it's a blessing, but where do you find that the mice that happened? Maybe it's a kasha. Maybe you're asking a kasha. But here the Gemara says that you find Mechokikim is from Machir, and Yehuda is called Yehuda. How does Yehuda come in the picture? Must be because of Bas Machir, because Chetzron married Bas Machir. So even though it was Yehuda's, if someone Shevet Yehuda, that someone married a daughter who had, that still is related to Yehuda. I hope I said it right. Maybe I said something wrong over there. That's the impression that I got. Okay, I think so, but maybe I'm wrong, but we'll leave it for that. Next Gemara. Now we'll go back to the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? That a person should not stop having children unless he has fulfilled the mitzvah of Kippur rule. And the Gemara said before that a wife he should have in any case, he should have a wife. That was the Gemara said. Let's scroll back a second. That was yesterday's Gemara that said he should have a wife even if he has children already. What was that? Shmuel. Shmuel said, "Lo tova yosadum levado afi sheish adam kamabana masalamad below isha." That was the Gemara yesterday. That even if he has children,
It's written in the
what does it say?
Chumash.
Yeah, that was when Hashem made the Chava. Now we're talking about that a person now. Does he have to get married after he has children already? So that was the Gemara yesterday that said, Shmuel said, from that pasuk we learned that a person, even if he has children, also he should get married. Now we're talking about, is there an issue to have children? If he has children already, the Mishnah said he doesn't have to have a bas banim anymore, even though he should get married. But lav dafka that he has to get married to have more children because he has children already. This is mitzvah pruvu. Now the Gemara says that Mishnah is against Rabbi Yeshua. Masnisen, the low Rabbi Yeshua. Our Mishnah that says that if a person was Mekayim Pruvu, he doesn't have to have children anymore, is against Rabbi Yeshua. The time Rabbi Yeshua Omer, now saw the Mishnah B'Yaldusa, Yisha was a Knusa. That we had already before, that a person should have a wife even if he had a wife in his youth. He should have a wife also in his older age. And how you lobanim B'Yaldusa, you lobanim is a Knusa. That's what we're looking for. That even if he had children, he's Mekayim Pruvu, he should try to have more children. And that's not the rice anymore, but it's going to be called Divrei Kabbalah. It's a pasuk in Shenema, pasuk in Koheles, Babok is Raz Arecha, V'lei Valtanach Yedecha, Kein Cha Yodei Eze Yichshav Azeh Ozeh, V'im Shnehem Ke'achar Tovim.
Where's the end of the pasuk?
Tovim. That plant your seeds in the morning, and in the evening do not stop, because you don't know which is going to be better, this one or that one, or both of them will be good. So the Gemara is saying, Babok is Raz Arecha is referring to having children, both all to having a wife, having children. So it says that he should have children even if he has children already. So that's against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says he doesn't have to have children anymore. And here it says, there is a mitzvah that a person should have children even though he's Mekayim Pruvu. The Gemara continues with the Bryce also, which also is going to be to learn from. Also as far as learning Torah, teaching Torah, that also even though he accomplished in his youth, he should try to accomplish more in his old age, both his learning, as far as teaching. The same pasuk. Not only is talking about seed, about getting married and having children, but also about learning Torah and teaching. The same pasuk. And here comes Mamish's story of Sfiyas Omer. Everybody knows, and here it is right here in Yevamos. Amru Shneim Masel Zugim Talmidim Ha'ila Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva had 12,000 pairs of Talmidim, 24,000 Talmidim. This is it. Yeah, 12,000 pairs, I guess, Chavrusas of Talmidim from Megeves ad Antipras. I don't know where that is. Places in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know where it is. Anybody know these places? Gefes and Tipras. I don't know where they are. And he had in this area he had 24,000 Talmidim. But Kulan Mesu b'Perek Echad, and all of them died in the same period. The Pnei Shalanagu covered Zelazeh because they didn't show enough respect to each other. Olam Shamin, the world was desolate. That all 24,000 Talmidim died. Elash Achabar Rabbi Kiva Yisrael B'Seinu Shabbadim. He came to the south, which sounds maybe like Yerushalayim or more south. Mishana Lahem. He taught them the Torah. So after 24,000, you had 5 Talmidim. Who are they? Famous Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel. Those are the 5 Talmidim Rabbi Kiva after the whole episode of the death of the Talmidim. The Haim Hamidu Torah, and they're the ones who erected the Torah. They put the Torah back on. Osasha at that time. Then we learned in the Brisa, Kula Mesim Pesach Vadatzer. All of them died between Pesach and Shavuos. That's why we have the Minhagim of Avelus during this period, because of the 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva that died.
They stopped going on like one.
And then the question is about Lag Bomer. What does Lag Bomer come in? Some say that altogether it was 33 days. Doesn't have to be Dafka till Lag Bomer. Some say it's a question of a total of 33 days and then not. So, and some say some say that was his yard sign.
Oh.
Not so simple. I think their sources are not so simple. Also in Miron, it's also not so simple that he's buried in Miron. A lot of things are not simple. A lot of things are not simple. One thing is simple. You're not allowed to make a new yantif. So it's us and the Chassam Sofer was very much not to make. You're not allowed to create a new yantif, especially Megillah Steinus after the Churban. And if things are out of proportion nowadays, I'm not saying not to celebrate. Just that you're not allowed to create a new yantif, especially after the Churban. And the Chassam Sofer is a special shuv about it. So everything has to be in proportion. It can't be aliyah regular. You can't make aliyah regular. It's not. So whatever monogam there are, to take it in proportion, not to make it a chagash abodam alibo. They all died an evil death, a bad death. How did they die? Askara is a kind of a strangulation. They call it Quincy or something. That was like the Gemara. Askara, the Gemara says in Brachos that that's the worst. That's the worst of the 903 kinds of deaths. It's a kind of a strangulation, like some kind of a choking. Quincy. 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 I don't know. That got it from the books.
Sounds like ironic to me.
I just got from the books.
I mean, isn't hanging also strangulation?
Yes, they weren't hung. They weren't hung. They weren't hung. It was some kind of a disease. It's a disease. That's one that they say.
Typically, corona is the
Yes, that's kind of askara. Somebody can't breathe. That's called askara. You started saying something, Moshe? Yeah. Just to point out, another Gemara. This I heard from Rav Nosson Rotman that there's another Gemara. I forgot what the Gemara is. Maybe it's also in Yevamos. I don't recall. That the Gemara, they mentioned it in the Chorva Friday night. Rav Yom Tov Zilberman spoke. There was a Gemara that Rav Tarfon asked a question, and he didn't know the answer. And there was a Talmud that knew the answer, Yehuda ben Achmeni something, and he said the answer, and Rav Tarfon didn't have an answer, that wasn't able to argue with him. And it says over there that the Talmud, like his face was glowing, like he outdid the Rebbe. And Rabbi Kiva told him, to me, honey, I would wonder if you're going to live a long life, because Rabbi Kiva told him, because you're glowing over the fact that you outdid the Rebbe. And then it says he came, that was like Pesach time, and then he came back Shavuos time, he asked, where's Yehuda ben Achmeni? He said that he died. So he puts together with this Gemara that says they died between Pesach and Shavuos. That's called well known covered. It doesn't have to mean the way people say that they would insult each other. It doesn't have to be that. The fact that people didn't care about the other one, especially a Talmud Torah Rebbe, that they didn't glow at the fact that they.
That was in the.
That was in the That was. He's trying to compare. That's called well known covered. That you have to care about each other. Also, the Ratzon that we say in the morning about learning. So it says that they should be happy about the other one's success, not to be gleeful over the other ones that they made a mistake. To be happy when somebody's successful in learning and to care about them and to want that they should be successful. That's the kavod, and especially for a Rebbe, that they shouldn't try to stump the Rebbe. I had a Rebbe once, a mental Kaplan, and he said that when he came to teach, he was in a yeshiva with the boys, tried to look in the Marsha to try to find the kasha to stump the Rebbe. He left the yeshiva. He said, if they're trying to stump the Rebbe, it's not for me. Like they don't have the right attitude towards the Rebbe. So the point is to try to, you match the Rebbe, you learn from him, you chaverim, you want them to be successful. You're not trying to outdo anybody. So that's like one lesson about this Nagul covered Zebazin. Throughout the wide line, Rav Masna, so we do pass like Yeshua against the Mishnah that even though if a person was Mekayim Pruvu, there's still a mitzvah from Divrei Kabbalah. Divrei Kabbalah means from Divrei Ksuvim, from Koheles, that a person should have more children, even more than the minimum. The device he has to try to have a boy and a girl, so he has to try as long as he did not have a boy and a girl. Once he did his Mekayim Pruvu, but there's still a mitzvah from Divrei Koheles, from Divrei Kabbalah, that he should try to have more.
What's the beginning of this last thing you said?
I said on the third wide line, Allah Rabbi Yeshua. He's the one who said back here that on this pasuk Babok is Razarecha. We're on the third wide line. It says a list of things here that a person gets from a wife. If he doesn't have a wife, he's missing these things. Simcha, bracha, tova. Brings a pasuk for each thing. Below simcha, tzib. Says you should rejoice, you and your family, and your wife. So it means that a person can't have the true simcha only with a wife. Below bracha, if he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have what's called blessing. Again, when it talks about bracha, it talks about beisacha. Again, beisacha means a wife. So he has to have a wife in order to have blessing. And below tova, the siv below tova yosadim levado. That's not called good. It's not good if he doesn't have a wife. So if he doesn't have a wife, he's missing these three things: simcha, bracha, tova. The Marava Amri, another two things he's missing. Below Torah, below Choma. He doesn't have Torah, and he doesn't have what's called a wall, the defense, protection. Below Torah, the Siva, Im, Ein, Ezra, Si, B, the Sushiya, the Tchomi, Many. It's the drash on the pasuk, but the Gemara is dashing Ezra means his wife, like it says, because that a wife is called the Eslo Ezer Kenegdo, that a wife is called an Ezer. So he says in the pasuk, Im, Ein, Ezra, Si, B, I don't have my wife. The Sushiya, the Tchomi, Many. The Sushiya is going to be in wisdom. I don't have wisdom. I don't have Torah. I don't have a wife. I don't have Torah. It's a drash, not the Pashup Shot. And also below home, he doesn't have protection. The Chsiv, the Kevut, the Soviv go there. It's also not the Pashup Shot, but the Gemara is dashing to mean that the woman surrounds the man as if to say she protects him. The woman, the wife, is going to protect the husband. It probably means from other women and things like that she protects him. Rava by Ula Amar, a sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a sixth thing. Below Shalom, he doesn't have true peace if he doesn't have a wife. I missed it. 1 second over here. Is that back on? Is the screen showing to those on Zoom?
Sorry, no, not yet.
Not yet. 1 second, please. Okay. Okay. First
Good.
line.
Thank you.
You will know that your tent is in peace, and you will, what's the word for character? You will take reckoning of your wife, of your dwelling, your wife, and you will not sin. So here it says that when you have a naveh, when you have a wife, then it's going to be shalom. So if a person doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have shalom. Or maybe alecha means a wife. So in order to have shalom, you have to have a wife. Yes, that's the pasuk. And now the Gemara is going to go on. This is the Gemara now, what do we call it? A parentheses that the Gemara is going to go into dashing the pasuk more than we already, not our subject. Just because we brought the pasuk now, I would imagine that this deserves a parentheses over here on the first white line. It's now going to dash in the pasuk of it came in Agab because we were saying what a person is missing without a wife. The last thing was Shalom, and I bring down this pasuk. So once we mention this pasuk, maybe it's nice to highlight the pasuk that we're going on. We're going to say a couple of drushes on this. If somebody knows that his wife is Yirei Shemayim and he doesn't take reckoning of her, means he doesn't have relations with her when he's supposed to, he's called a sinner. Because it says, Rashi said, means that your wife is perfect. What's perfect about it? She has Yirei Shemayim. And take care of her. If not, and don't sin. That means if you don't take care of her, you don't take care of her needs of having relations when you're supposed to, so then it's a sin. A person has to reckon his wife means have relations with her in when he's going out on the road, because when he's leaving, so then she feels more like she misses him more. So he has to have relations before he takes leave. The same pasuk. I don't know how the Gemara knows that's anything to do with leaving the road, but the Gemara, I don't know.
That's going to protect him because he did.
No, it's not because protecting him. It's because it's not because protecting him. It's in order to take care of her because she's going to miss him. He's leaving. He's going away. So before he leaves, he has to give her. It's not. No, if he doesn't do it, it's a sin. Not because he's going to sin with having thoughts or something like that on the road. It's because he's not going to take care of her. He's a sinner.
Oh.
He has to take care of her needs.
Okay,
And that's not saying that. It's not saying about his Hurim. It's talking about he has to take care of his wife. This is the pasuk. This is the source. We have a different pasuk for that. It says that it says over there by the klal of Chava that your desire is going to be to your husband. You see that a woman desires her husband when he's leaving. I don't see how the Gemara sees in the first pasuk that has anything to do with leaving. I think you need both psukim together. But the Gemara is a kasha and says that you don't need both psukim for the same thing. The chiddush is even if it's possible, she's supposed to be becoming a nida. And you're not supposed to have relations in Samach Levesta. Means that she has a predicted day when she's expecting to have a cycle. And the chiddush is even then, also, Samach Levesta is supposed to have. Now, the post can say, no, he's not supposed to, because it's too dangerous. She might become a nida. And he's not supposed to have relations. So they talk about here, Taisha says that it means not after. Here it says, Amr ben Atam, Kida zu en atashmi, Shala Kishivos, Allah says, Derechim, who rochot, Mimena lo yetzel derech, Elam kein Yoshev Elav Yifkedena, or Betashmish, or Beshar Dvorim. They talk. The post can talk about it doesn't override any kind of a halacha that's not supposed to have relations. If it's a time already that it's too close to have relations, it's a dangerous zone. So then maybe not. But it means he should take care. Whatever he should maybe postpone the trip, whatever it might be, or make the trip earlier, whatever that he should be able to avoid that time or maybe he should do other things in order to appease her and give her satisfaction, and she should know that he loves her. So it doesn't have to mean Samach Levesta within that period. And what's that period? Amar Rava Ona. Ona means that day or night that she's expected to have a cycle, when it's expected to come. The menstrual cycle is expected to come. So that 12-hour period, that's the Ona, that's also also to have relations.
What's the word Vikama?
Vikama, how much is that? What's called Samach Levesta? The best that means the set cycle. When is that? Samach Levesta? Ona. That 12-hour period is called Samach Levesta. That 12-hour period that she's within it, she's expected to see it at a certain time. So the whole 12-hour period, either the day or the night, is considered the Ona, and he's not supposed to have relations with her. This halacha that he's supposed to take care of his wife. If he's going on the road, it's only if he's going for his own reasons. But if he's going for a mitzvah trip, so then we're not going to put the burden of him that he has to take care of her, because he cannot do both at the same time. Mitridi, any Rashi on that? The Torah b'mitzvah, Yinamli, Mitrid, b'tashmish, v'batel mitzvah. One of them is going to lose out. Either the mitzvah is going to lose out, or he's too busy with the mitzvah, so he can't be bothered with taking care of his wife. Or if he's going to take care of his wife, he's not going to do the mitzvah. So we're not going to hold him responsible to do both things. If he's going for a mitzvah, then he doesn't have to have relations with his wife before he leaves. Tana Rabbanan, Ohei v'sishto ki gufo b'macham diyosim migufo b'amanef manef b'nosu b'derech yishara b'amesi samach leperkan b'mesiyan samach leperkan Allah v'kasav omer v'edati kishalom alecha v'karata nefcha v'losechta. The same pasuk we said before. Another drash about that: a person loves his wife like himself, and he honors his wife more than himself. He takes care of her honor more than his own honor, and he directs his children and sons and daughters to go on the right path, and he marries them off close to their maturity, which means that he would marry them off in the 12, 13 area. So about him, it says that you're going to know that your tent is in peace. If he does these things, then his ohel, his house will be in tranquility. What do they call it? Domestic tranquility. If he loves his wife like himself, he honors him more than himself, he directs his sons and daughters in the right path, and he marries them young.
You usually talk about the only first two, though.
What about it?
Those are the only ones that usually are quoted in the Musa books.
Oh, they should say the rest also. Another two.
I never remember these two. The first I remember.
Maybe the books are talking about a certain subject, only about his wife. But here it says about the other ingredients also. In order to have shalom, he has to have the shalom. Also, should go in the proper way. And also, they should marry them young. On the next page, this is a different issue. The person loves his neighbors and he brings his relatives close. There's makar v'chokim. Here's care of children. There's the issue to make your relatives close. A person has relatives, he should go out of his way to do something to make a close relationship between his relatives. And if somebody marries his niece, his sister's daughter. So nowadays they say with the genes, it's permitted. Yes.
Brother's daughter is forbidden. It's ever,
no? No. You're allowed to marry a niece. You're talking about an aunt. You're not allowed to marry an aunt. You're allowed to marry a niece. Rashi says the reason why it says
from both brother or sister.
Yes, the reason why Rashi says a sister's daughter is. Rashi says something about that. Where's Rashi on top? Taisvis, on the bottom. Because a person is closer, he touched on the bottom. Here's also a brother's daughter also, but a sister's daughter is more because there's a better relationship over there. Which it's more usual that a person should marry his sister's daughter than his brother's daughter. I'm sorry.
His sister helps you out.
Right. So therefore, it's more usual you should marry your sister's daughter. Another reason, that maybe there's more similarity to a sister's daughter than to a brother's daughter. So the point is that it should stay in the family. Nowadays, talk about genes. Maybe it's not recommended nowadays according to our situation, but theoretically, it would have been better to marry in the family. And what else? That he lends money to an only.
What did Tosfos mean there at the end? That it was from the sister. It's more similar. What's more similar?
Their personalities.
Then if it would be the daughter of his brother.
Right. I think it's what it says. And Malvasad Lani B'Shas, a person lends to a poor man when the person needs it. Well, if he does these things, Then you're gonna, when you call out to Hashem, Hashem is gonna answer you, and Teshuvah, you're gonna call out for help, and Hashem is gonna say, "Here I am." And Rashi says, because the pasuk before that says, Rashi says, the Gemara doesn't explain what the pasuk is. Where do you see this in the pasuk? Because earlier it says, if you see the naked and you cover him, and you should not ignore your relatives. So Rashi says all these things are included in these points of taking care of your relatives and neighbors and the poor. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to ask whether you have something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's say, Chas v'shalom, a brother ends up killing a brother. Let's say in a car accident, he's driving and he ends up killing his brother. Does he still have to do klitza or yevamos?
I would think so.
No, it's not intentional.
Yeah. Who's intentional?
Take him out and kill him.
Man said he's scared
That's a
of
good
being
question.
down.
Oh, yeah, we were scared that if he kills his brother on purpose, then because maybe he wants he wants his wife.
Oh.
That's it.
Okay, Yashikach, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, tomorrow's
Shavua Tov.
Thursday,
Shavua Tov. Thank you.
11 o'clock.
Looking forward